Our campaign has been doing so well. I think people are saying enough with establishment politics and establishment economics. We need a political revolution in which millions of people come together and say, you know what? Our government belongs to all of us, not just a handful of wealthy campaign contributors.
There is no unknown. I am on record. I went to Wall Street before the Great Recession. I called them out. I said what they were doing in the mortgage market was going to cause serious problems.
Well, from America's election headquarters, trustworthiness is a big issue this campaign season so far for both parties. Hillary Clinton, as you see there, defending her Wall Street ties at a candidate forum last night, and Bernie Sanders repeating his call for higher taxes on the rich. And our Fox News entrance polls for the Democratic caucuses in Nevada, 25% said honest and trustworthiness is the biggest factor in who gets elected. Of that group, 82% found Bernie Sanders to be honest. Hillary Clinton, 12%. And in a Quinnipiac University poll taken just over a week ago, Donald Trump and Ted Cruz are at the back of the pack together on trustworthiness, with nearly the same number as Clinton. Donald Trump is, of course, taking that attack on trustworthiness directly to Ted Cruz, calling him a liar. And with Trump as the clear frontrunner, how will that battle cry work against Hillary Clinton? Pete Snyder is a former Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia and a Fox News contributor. Basil Smykel is the executive director of the New York State Democratic Party and a former senior aide to then Senator Hillary Clinton. It's great to have you both. Okay, the issue of trustworthiness certainly has come up a lot in this campaign season. Just to refresh our memories over the last few days about how it's come up, here's Donald Trump.
This guy, Ted Cruz, is the single biggest liar I have ever dealt with in my life. I mean it. I've never seen, he will lie about anything. I've never seen anybody that lied as much as Ted Cruz.
But really, Cruz does lie. I've never seen anything quite like it.
Even Marco Rubio said he's a liar. And when a politician says another politician's a liar, I never heard that before. I felt so good.
All right, so it's gotten a lot of attention against Ted Cruz. Pete, now that Donald Trump is the front runner, clearly, how would it work against Hillary Clinton?
Well, look, if you could see what Donald Trump did to Jeb Bush, what he's doing right now to Ted Cruz, I mean, he has been a heat-seeking missile against any other Republican that's running in this race. I would like to believe that if he's our nominee, he could do the same thing to Hillary Clinton. Once Donald Trump gives you the business, that kind of stink stays on you for a while. That's what the past couple of weeks and months have proven.
The reason why we're asking this in part today, Basil, is because a federal judge just came out and said, listen, we're going to allow basically critics of Clinton to question her aides under oath on this email issue that continues to go on. And so if that continues to go on, we're not going to litigate that issue now. But if she has that overhanging her and she has Donald Trump out there calling her a liar, how does she overcome that?
Well, listen, I think she has acknowledged the same thing, that the drip, drip, drip of these emails has been a constant talking point on the campaign. You've actually seen that less a bit now than you did early on when she first announced and when this sort of first started coming to light. Because I think ultimately, and this is what I would say to that, ultimately I think what voters are looking for are answers to their everyday problems. So even if Donald Trump has been great at calling out the politicians and the establishment candidates on his side, my guess is that he'll have to soften that tone a little bit once he gets to a general election. Because even though he may make some claims against Hillary Clinton, that leaves Hillary Clinton to make substantial claims against him, and it's fair game at that point.
Well, fair game, and to Basil's point, Pete, when you look at the trustworthiness numbers for Donald Trump, they aren't high. They're low. They're along with Ted Cruz. So is that a weakness for Trump as well?
Well, it certainly could be, Jenna. Look, I've never been a big fan of the clunk someone over the head with an anvil and call them a liar. Somehow or another, it seems to work for Donald Trump. But what history has shown us, when you deal with both Clintons, when you use their own words against them, when let's release the transcripts from those Goldman Sachs $1 million speeches that she's given. Let's see what she had to say and whether it jives with what she said last night. Let's take what she said to the families of those lost in Benghazi versus what she shared with her own family of what happened in Benghazi. Hillary versus Hillary has a much better ratio of success for Republicans than just hitting her over the head with a hammer.
What do you think of that, Basil?
Well, I actually disagree. No shock there. Listen, I think that if you put Hillary's record up against any of the Republicans, I think she wins. If you compare her history and interaction with Wall Street, she pales in comparison to where the Republicans. She pales in
the money that she got out of there, Basil.
She pales
She's been a Hoover of a vacuum cleaner on Wall Street for money.
When you compare her to the actual Republicans.
When we talk about Hillary up against Republicans, we actually have some numbers. And John mentioned this earlier in our program when speaking to Karl Rove, some of these hypothetical head-to-head matchups. And what's interesting is when you look at Hillary Clinton matched up against Donald Trump in a Real Clear Politics average of national polling, she beats Donald Trump, who is the front runner, of course, for the GOP at this time. Check her out, though, next to Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz actually beats her again in Real Clear Politics average of polling. Ted Cruz comes out ahead, so does Marco Rubio. Pete, what do you make of that? What do you think that tells us?
Well, Jenna, she's a known quantity, and the American people, by and large, don't really like her. They don't find her trustworthy. People in her own party, as you just showed in Nevada, don't find her very trustworthy. So given all, look, in Washington, there's a lot of bedwetting going on right now, but I feel very good about the Republican chances in 2016. The amount of interest in the people that we're pulling to the polls has been phenomenal over the past couple of years. This 17-way race melee, I think, may be even good for the party and give us a good head of steam going into November.
So, Basil, what Pete's saying is that turnout, and we have certainly seen that turnout is up for Republicans in every single state so far. It's down, actually, for Democrats. And he's saying that the enthusiasm will eventually be what overcomes Hillary Clinton if she indeed is the nominee. Trustworthiness aside.
Well, frankly, I think you still see very strong turnout on the Democratic side, and I think you see that in every state. But I will also say this. Just because you're seeing enthusiasm on the Republican side, it's really interesting that the Republican establishment is now sort of taking credit for that enthusiasm. In fact, they had very little to do with it. This was all unscripted.
Hey, we believe in free markets, Basil. I mean, our system isn't rigged the way the Democrats are. I mean, Hillary's going to get the nomination and Bernie doesn't have a chance.
Let me ask you this final question, though, because this is coming up. We make a big deal about trustworthiness because it sounds like, well, of course we want somebody that's trustworthy. And I don't mean to sound cynical, but I'm going to sound a little cynical here with the final question for both of you. Do you think people really care? Do you think they really believe ultimately that politicians are trustworthy as a priority? Or do they just want someone who's a really good leader? And so I wonder about this question of trustworthiness, Pete, about how much it really matters when you think of the politician that you want in office. What do you think?
Well, Jenna, if you look at surveys and you look at where on trustworthiness, where politician comes in and used car salesman, it's about at the same level.
And
so the American voters are very smart, okay? So they get the joke. That's why they gravitate towards ideas and leadership. And, I think our party has ideas in spades this election cycle. That's why I feel good about our chances.
Well, I agree to this extent that I think ultimately what voters are looking for are people who show leadership and have policies and ideas that directly impact their day-to-day lives. And frankly, I think, no surprise here, that this is what the Democrats are talking to in this election. They're not playing to people's fears as Donald Trump is. They're playing to people's aspirations, and that, I think, is where America needs to be.
Interesting. I'll be curious what our viewers think about all of this. Basil, Pete, great to have you both. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenna.